Good evening and welcome to CB8 Speaks. My name is Sophia James and I'm a board member of Community Board 8, which covers the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island. Tonight, we're going to visit with our new board member, Andrew Kalloch, who grew up in the small town of Hamilton, north of Boston. His parents were public school teachers and very involved in local politics and civic life. His commitment to public service was a foundational family value and continues to be a guiding principle in his life. As a college student, he taught civics to low-income students in Boston and led a program that brought books into the homes of Head Start students. As a law student, he was a member of the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, where he spent 25 hours a week representing victims of domestic violence in family court, as well as fought to ensure they secured the public benefits in which they were eligible. During his time at the Legal Aid Bureau, he also represented incarcerated individuals in internal prison disciplinary proceedings with the full belief that while there may be liberty for some, there must be justice for all. When Andrew first moved to New York City, while he spent some time with the NYCLU, he jumped at the chance to be a policy advisor to then Borough President Scott Stringer. Nearly 4 years later, and now the Deputy Policy Director for Comptroller Stringer, he has received a political education of the first order, diving into every possible issue in neighborhoods across the 5 boroughs. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Sophia.
I know you worked on a number of important issues while working with then Borough President Stringer. How did you first become aware of the community board?
Well, as you said, I'm something of a child of the New England town meeting, so I am used to going to places and seeing where citizens can voice their concerns about the neighborhood. So really, the community board felt like home to me. It was a place where folks could go and talk about the issues germane to what's happening in their backyard. And whether that was stop and frisk or education, transportation, or the environment, it was a place where folks could go and really be heard and talk about the issues of the day. So I was happy to be a part of it when I was working for the borough president. I'm really happy to be a member of it now.
That's great to hear. What is your impression of the community board so far?
Well, it's a terrific crew. I mean, these are 50 folks who volunteer their time to work on behalf of their neighbors. They all have very strong opinions, like you would expect of New Yorkers, and they voice those, every week at our meetings. But they're also respectful of one another, and more importantly, they understand that it's the public who we really need to listen to. That we are there to represent the interests of our neighbors and our community writ large, and that it's not just really about us at all, it's really about us as a community.
You've joined the Transportation Committee. What drew you to that committee?
Yeah, I am a bona fide transportation geek, I must admit. I have always loved the trains, the buses, the subways, the trams in our community board, and now City Bike in our community board. So I really think that transportation is one of those issues that unites all of us as New Yorkers. You might be rich, poor, everything in between, but when you're a strap hanger, you care about the trains coming on time and not being delayed because of signals or traffic ahead. So I hope to be able to improve the way transportation functions on the Upper East Side, and I hope to be able to work with my committee members to reduce congestion and to make it an easier part of people's daily lives.
Of course, and what other committees draw your interest and why?
Well, I've joined the Environment and Sanitation Committee as well. Obviously, there have been some very controversial projects in our community board area about sanitation, and I think those are very important to continue to discuss. But the environment is also something that I think is a challenge, not just here in New York City, but across the country and around the world. Actually, the day that we're taping this right now, the Pope is landing his helicopter in Lower Manhattan, and he is one of many spiritual and political leaders who have talked about the kind of need for urgent action on climate change. And we can start that right here in New York City, being an exemplar to the world about what folks need to do, not only to prepare for the changes that are coming, but to stem off some of the consequences that come from the most severe effects of climate change.
And you can definitely add some of your policy background to a lot of the committee issues and provide sort of that research background.
That's right. I hope to bring all of my strengths and, unfortunately, many of my weaknesses to the community board and in any way I can.
You mentioned to me that people are passionate, New Yorkers more than most, and we tend to live and breathe our neighborhoods. What issues most drive your desire to serve on the community board?
Well, I do think we live and breathe our neighborhoods, and that's a great thing. I'm constantly impressed not only by what community board members understand about what's going on in their backyard and on their block, but from the public who come and make their opinions known. At the same time, you know, we don't want the community board to just have such an insular focus on our streets. We need to look beyond 59th Street and 96th Street. And the reason we need to do that is not only because folks north, south, east, and west of us are our neighbors and fellow residents of New York City, but because what happens in their neighborhood affects our neighborhood. And so whether it's making sure that every child in the city has an education that prepares them for college and career, that every individual has the opportunity to find a good paying job and have the transportation to get them from an affordable home to that job and back. You know, these are all issues that affect us as New Yorkers, and I think the community board is uniquely positioned to talk about all of them, both in our district and beyond. Excellent.
And as a person who has worked for social justice, how do you see activism and advocacy playing a role as you participate on the community board?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. One I've thought about a lot about as a so-called millennial, because we often, growing up, we would see activism as something that was in the history textbook, or something I would have to ask my mother about in terms of protesting the Vietnam War or fighting for changes for the environment or for women's rights or for these great movements that the country is engaged in. Today it's a little bit different, but I still think that activist spirit has to inform everything that we do, and I think the community board is just one way of many to do that.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Sophia.
I think you shared, some really good points, and welcome to the community board, and thank you for making time for CB8 Speaks.
Thank you very much.